Hello. Thank you all so much for coming. I'm going to do first the thing I forgot to do at the first part of the program, which is to remind you all to please silence your phones. Thank you. I'm Sarah Wilson. I'm the Executive Director of the Laura Riding Jackson Foundation. I want to thank those of you who are just joining us. Some of you have been with us since 2:30. Some of you weren't able to arrive until recently, so thank you so much. We're now moving on to the 4 o'clock part of our program. I want to first say just a couple of words of thanks to our board. If you're a member of our board, can you kind of give a little wave? Thank you all so much. And thank you to our board and all of you for being here today to participate in this event, to listen to our poets, to help us raise money for our programming. We really could not do it without you, so thank you so much for coming. I'm going to introduce Sean Sexton, who will then introduce our featured poets, and then this part of the program will go probably, honestly, to a little bit past 5. After that, we will have some barbecue, but I'll make some announcements about that when we're done with the poetry. Our board member, longtime board member, and former Indian River County Poet Laureate, Sean Sexton.
Look how many, I didn't know you all were coming in. I was just sitting there. And now, my God, we've got a crowd. You're a credit to your breed. Thank you for coming. This is number 14. We've done 14 of these. Only one time did we only have 2 poets, but another time we had 4. So it's an average of 3 times 13. Extraordinary poets have come to this community and read their great stuff. And we've done that for you. And you are here, you've done the coming here for us, and we really appreciate it. You're the most important ones. These, there's a poet under every bush. So we're gonna have. I'm gonna get out of here quickly. But we're going to have Tina come first. I'm going to introduce each of them as we put them up. And Tina co-wrote Glass Cabin. Incidentally, Chad Leonard is back there in the corner. He's got great books. And let me just tell you, these people have great books. They have great books, and they're back there. And I want you to visit that table and take home some of that joy that they provided you here. Tina is from Remlap, Alabama, which should be Palmer if 2 brothers would get along a little better. And she's co-written a book, Glass Cabin, most recently, with her husband, the writer James Braziel, and he's part of the Southern white trash renaissance in literature. Am I right? Thank Harry Crews. Thank Larry Brown. They built a house by hand on Hydrangea Ridge in rural Alabama, and her poetry and that book. And she also won the Philip Levine Prize for Anhinga Press for Known by Salt. An extraordinary, fabulous book. It's back there. We had the same publisher, and I met her at the Florida Literary Arts Coalition Conference in Tampa. And I thought she was the sweetest girl I'd ever met. And don't tell Cathy.
Appearing where it shouldn't. I figured it would take the power of Moses for those struggling creatures to part the red clay, swim on down to a good sea. Mama predicted they'd choke, that this is how something bad takes care of nothing good. So another poem with my mom in it. So this one also mentions Jim, which is how I've referred to my husband. His name's James. My dad's also named James, and my brother too. So obviously, I'm very attracted to men with those names. And it mentions a foundation post. We built our house as a pole house, so we put foundation post in the ground. So that's in here. And also there's a recipe, and I think I mess up when I read it. It's like an aside, so I'm going to just tell you. There's my mom's recipe for rolls, they were really good. She hasn't made them in a while, but it's 2 parts self-rising flour, 1 part butter, and 1 part sour cream. So you're like half fat and half flour. So good. And there's also the 1980s shake and bake commercial in here. So what I mean when I say help like HEP isn't HEP as in HEPCAT, 1950s hip. No, I'm mimicking the 80s shake and bake commercial featuring a tiny girl proudly declaring, "And I helped," meaning the way I helped Jim put in foundation post by steadying a power pole that I could not carry or catch. But it stayed upright. My laying hands on it was miracle. And saying HEP pays homage to Mamaw, who always said HEP and loaded sentences with triple negatives like, "He ain't got no money nohow," and aiming them as true as her pistol, outshooting Papaw 2 out of 3 every target practice. An homage to Mama, who dropped so many L's one Thanksgiving, my boyfriend heard her worries over her rolls as, "I told you, don't let my rose get cold." He poked fun at her so bad that when I learned in my history of the English language course that centuries ago English speakers stopped pronouncing the L's in should and would, and that this phenomenon will happen again, I told him Mama's ahead of her time instead of backward. It figures my people would take such too far. The way I see it, that boyfriend damn well shouldn't. Times I say it don't, she don't, takes me back to Mamaw spreading quilts on the grass beside her trailer so she could sit and watch us grandkids hoot and holler, hurtling over her rose bushes like track stars. I mean no disagreement, no appropriation talking like this. I mean I feel at home. Still, I get why I got the side eye at the airport for listening too close to black women talking to each other in a way they won't talk to me or other white people. They sound more like family than anybody else. Even their turning shoulders have me wanting to call out the way Mamaw said goodbye. Need me, just holler. So my middle name is Mozelle, and I insist in having that as part of my, appearing on books and things. I didn't want to be Tina Harris Braziel. I took my husband's name, partly because I'm really proud of being connected with Mozelle. She adopted my mother, and but all my life I've heard things like, "We didn't name you Mozelle for nothing." Like if I took up knitting or, liked something that was really nice because she liked really nice clothes and things. So, but that came up more and more often when Jim and I started building the house. And I heard a story I didn't know before that she and my grandfather, when they were building the house that they lived in, when they lived in it while they were building it. And I didn't realize that she also helped with it. I knew he had built it, but I didn't realize they also lived in it while they were building, much like we did. And I guess the other thing to say is I like to think that, at least in our family, that that names are as thick as blood. A clear view. Neighbors talk saying, "That Mozelle, she's going to get her a house." Not quite, bless her heart. yet scant admiration for a woman mixing mortar for her groom the day after their wedding. Brick withstands such huff and puff at a divorcee marrying a brick mason her daddy's age, at a couple moving into a half-built house 3 blocks from Maine. That was the 1950s. And now I'm another Mozelle, building a home after wrecking his, so that we can live like bears in the woods. I hold panes in place while my husband secures their frames. We're raising a glass cabin for its clear view on whatever a neighbor may think or decide to hurl our way. So I'm going to read a poem about Jim. Ashley Jones, who's Alabama State Poet Laureate and a dear friend of mine and one of Jim's students, always said that he has mom energy, and she calls him Mama Jim. She calls me her brain sister, so it's a really kind of mixed up family like a lot of Southerners have. But she's reading in Florida today, and Jim's reading in Huntsville, so I just wanted to evoke her. And I think this poem kind of helps you get that mom energy. I mentioned Dylan, who's my stepson, who helped us build the house. And just in the past couple of weeks, he got his license to be an architect, which was really great. It would have been great if he was an architect then. I married him before he got the roof on. Married him before June, before he said we're moving come September, even if we live in a tent. Married him before I saw our ceiling was so high rain would blow in. Married him before he tied an apron of nails around my waist each morning. Before I learned measuring twice and cutting once never guarantees getting it right. Before I fathomed how this is more epic than being benighted on a cliffside or backpacking slot canyons, how nothing is left safe at home base, how I must carry all that I have, all that I am, around saws and scaffolding, through rainstorms and sawdust. Yes, I married him before I got how all in, all is. Married him before he called me trouble, like he calls Dylan, and the cat, a pet he never wanted but now brushes, pours a saucer of milk and cup of water. Before I knew he'd build the cat a bed and line it with his own wool sweaters. I married him before I got the measure of a man is the trouble he loves and how. Oh, I forgot to write down the page number, and I'm looking for the poem. Okay, so I'm reading this poem now because it's this time of year, especially in Alabama. And it's when all the leaves are gone and you can just see so much further. And also things feel apocalyptical now, and I'm obsessed with apocalypse. So may the apocalypse come in early spring. The logo inside my down jacket claims beauty is function, and a TED Talk argues people find open spaces with clumps of trees beautiful, because that's where humans first survive. So just let the next apocalypse try and wrangle our spring. Here the plum steals a blizzard of petals and hickories, lifts flame-shaped buds high, dead leaves fallen, sky blues all the way down to the ground, bearing the ridgeline enough that we watch rain wash over its hip, waist, breast. That's the function, seeing what's coming before it arrives. If we can see it, is what I say, prompting you to call me your apocalyptical one, like you have for forever. But don't you know, my love, that one sets two in motion? Now you warn about bird flu swooping in, markets crashing. You say we'll hole up here. We're built for hard times. I say look at how spring functions, flexes. Watch those daffodils pick themselves up after rain. See how they leave sun trying to match their brilliance. Okay, I hope I'm not taking too much time. So this is a very new poem. It's about my friend Ada Long. We lost her last year. And she lived on St. George Island. And she was definitely she didn't have her own children, but she was definitely a mother to a lot of people in the honors program that she directed. And also to all the creatures that came near her house. So it doesn't even have a title. I'll just start. Ada watched out for the dryer handle frog, a light socket frog, the frog living in her watering can. Ada walked with a rake, its head to the sky, and it said it made walking easier. Let her pull a bit of the deep kink from her back. Once she showed me a turtle whose face was as white as her hair, something taut that I couldn't grasp passed between them. The last time I saw her, she said she was still trying to figure out how to be old, wondering how and if she could remain confident, risk hurricanes, ask for help. She fed birds, and their feed fed squirrels and raccoons and rats, and she watched them climb and balance to eat. She made her yard a sanctuary for moccasins. Neighbors left birdseed on her doorstep, her favorite gift. I never bought her any. Chopping green onions reminds me how we bickered over what's best to eat, the white ends or the green shoots. Cutting onions never made me cry before. Birds go hungry now, and her koi, and her colony of cats. Ada said frogs felt like kisses. She offered each one her wrist. I'm digging a hole for her, not a grave, but a small pond, something like filling a vase with water, not for flowers, but for frogs. And so if you follow me on social media, you know I'm obsessed with tadpoles and frogs. This started with the pandemic. I noticed that there was a puddle, and there was these tadpoles were in the puddle, and they started to dry up. And Jim was like, if you don't take them home, they're going to die. And I figured I couldn't do worse than death. So I've been raising tadpoles ever since, more than 400 last year. Anyway, so these next two poems are some of my tadpole poems, which is part of my mothering, I suppose. Indicator species. Frogs and toads mean good habitat. Bears would mean even better. When the neighbors suggest I take pepper spray to the Smoky Mountains, I get they don't want bears denning in our woods like I do. So I raise tadpoles as if I could rig indications, the way my aunt rigged sewing machines to sew scrubs faster. She was paid by the piece. I scooped tadpoles out of a drying puddle and huddled them in casserole dishes filled with water and sand enough for a beach, as if I'm good, as if I alone could make us good, as if my neighbors won't mind the mosquito larvae wiggling out their wings, as if I'm that human, able to take the world as is, you know, claws and all. So raising tadpoles is super easy when you're home all the time, like we were on lockdown. But then when you start traveling, you know, there's dog sitters and there's house sitters and plant sitters, but tadpole sitters? I don't know. If you lived closer, I would say if you want to volunteer, please. So I'm like walking around trying to figure out how to do this and like put them where it would rain, but not too much so they wouldn't spill out of the casserole dishes and that type of thing. And I was like, God, it's hard to be a puddle. And I was like, dang, that's a good line. So that's in here. And there's a joke in here, and if you laugh, it'll make my day. Hold still. Puddles around here dry up too quick for tadpoles to frog and toad. My casserole dishes hold only so much rain, never enough tadpoles to keep the choir crooning. Once a whippoorwill blued our nights, a call so anxious we joked he couldn't get any or enough. Like the Bob White I whistled to as a kid, he's gone. I'm trying, but I'm no good at being a puddle or knowing how fast the weights may melt. But I get how hard it is to hold and to hold still, to be sucked at from below and above, to be overflown, to keep edges gradual. I want tadpoles to taste land and return, and bees to wade in and take a sip without drowning. It's hard to keep clean and to remain dirty enough for mosquitoes, dragonflies, and toads, to be both watering hole and open womb. And I have one more poem. And it's so funny because last night we read our newest poems, and this is probably my oldest poem that I have published. And it's about Mozelle. It's called Mozelle's Shoes. When I say my feet won't fill her shoes, I mean her snakeskin pumps, her patent leather loafers, her suede boots. I'm not using a metaphor to show you how I'm unable to follow in her footsteps. I'd never pretend I could stand to go deaf from scarlet fever, to go blind from a husband's slap. I couldn't make my way out of the quiet and dark to recover sound and sight like she did. I can wear her silk blouses, her belts and rings, yet my feet aren't big enough to sport one pair of the splendid shoes that line her closet. But when you call me by her name, a name that sounds like the bounding of a gazelle, my feet feel moccasined in their own skin, and I know I can leap any fence, run any distance. Thank you.
Isn't she fabulous? Now we've got Sarah. Sarah's coming up. She is amazing. I said to her when she was asking me after she agreed to come, she said, "Well, where is it?" And I said, "It's a little town in Florida. You won't know it." And she said, "Well, where?" And I said, "Vero Beach." And she said, "I've been there." And she's a sports writer. She was a sports writer, and we were probably in the patio restaurant the same time in the bar, and I was working, but she was. Sarah Freligh is the author of 8 books, including Sad Math, which is back there, winner of the 2014 Moon City Press Poetry Prize and the 2015 Whirling Prize from the University of Indianapolis, and A Brief Natural History of Women, imagine that, published in 2023 by Harbor Editions. Recent work has appeared in the Cincinnati Review, the Micro Series, Smoke Long Quarterly, Sun Magazine, Wiggly 50, and in the anthologies New Micro, because she's a flash, would you say flash fiction, is that it? Writer. But anyway, I've said enough. Come on up here. Come on up here.
Oh, wow. Okay, can everybody hear me okay? All right, good. Great. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Sean, for inviting me. When I was listening to Tina just now and Cathy last night, I realized that all poetry should be read in beautiful Southern accent. So please bear with me while I read you some poems in my bitter Yankee accent. I'll try not to go too fast because we do have that thing going. Anyways, I'm going to start out by reading a poem that's in my book, We, which is kind of a hybrid. It's flash fiction, but it's poetry too. And I wrote this one years after I wrote Sad Math, and I realized that it probably should have gone into Sad Math. So when I do finally do another book of poetry, it will be called Sadder Math, and this poem will be in it. But anyways, it sort of sets up what I'm going to read. So this is So I Call My Mother on Sunday. Every Sunday, though I don't say, "How are you?" anymore, because I know she's dying, and each day will be worse than the day before. Her liver's rotting the way an apple goes bad, swelling as it softens and maybe smells sweet as fruit does before you toss it. I ask her how the weather is, snowing like crazy here, about the traffic at the bird feeder. She likes to watch the small birds, chickadees and nuthatches, not so much the sparrows, though today she says the minister's there and she's planning her funeral. She wants to be cremated. She wants an urn and the family to bury her, no one else in attendance. A memorial service, maybe sandwiches after. It's been snowing every day for a week now. I say, we're knee deep in it. Did you hear me? She says. And I tell her, it's such a heavy snow. To shovel every hour, I get so tired of shoveling. God, I want to cry. So I'm going to be reading from my book, Sad Math. A word about sad math. As Sean said, it came out from Moon City Press in 2014. Won the 2014 prize. It came out in 2015. And in 2016, I went down to Springfield, Missouri, which is where Missouri State is located, and Moon City Press is part of Missouri State. And there was there's like a reception before the reading, and, like I was introduced to people who are friends of the press and the university. And this man came up to me and said, I just want to tell you congratulations, and, and tell you that you look, really good in spite of everything you went through. I'm like, and I thought, I took a commuter plane from Chicago. We had to de-ice it for a long time. That was pretty bad. But I didn't think that was what he meant. So I just kept talking to him. And I realized that he thought the title of my book was Sad Meth. And that's... It was probably my bitter Yankee accent. It's sad math. So, yeah. So anyways, I'm going to be reading from Sad Math. All right. And this poem I'm going to dedicate to Sean. It's the first poem in the book. It has cows in it. Starting with an old photo of my mother and ending on a hill. She is red-lipped and slender in a shirt-waist dress, bun of hair hidden under a white hat. She lives on ice chips and cigarettes. Chopin is in the fingers that twine through mine, a warning and an endearment. My brother's a shifting load on her hip. I will grow up and smoke cigarettes the way she did in lieu of food, hungrily tap my ashes into a ceramic whale, belly hollowed out where its womb would have been. I will never wear her clothes. Sometimes I drive south on 2-lane highways, through one-light towns, until I'm cradled in hills. In August, the maple trees are dying inside. The chlorophyll stop rising, and soon enough the leaves will yellow. I think of her body as one of those small towns where the lone factory's down to a single shift, a building where birds fly in and out of deciduous windows and high school boys break and enter nightly to light fires and talk big. Listen to them, and you can almost believe their hearts will never turn bitter and quit. I'd write a love poem to those boys, but I wouldn't know where to send it, so I'm saying this to you, Mom, shouting from a hilltop at a couple of cows who look up at me and go on chewing. They're as blank as grief can be, the emptiness of a parking lot 10 minutes after the shifts let out, a dandelion in the cracked asphalt waving at the trail of exhaust from the last car to leave. Okay, I wrote down this set list and I can't read my own writing. Terrible. I'm deteriorating, so I'm just going to kind of go with it. Okay, Donut Delight. All summer, I tossed wheels of dough into a sea of grease where they browned and crisped while I smoked half a cigarette. By the time the owner stopped by, the air was humid with sugar, the bakery cases filled with roses of donuts I'd frosted and sprinkled. He'd pull $1 from his wallet to pay for his cruller, his cup of coffee, show me the photo of his son squinting into the light, smiling like a man who didn't know he would die at Quezon. On my last day, the boss pressed a wad of bills into my hand and kissed me goodbye. When he slipped his tongue into my mouth, I could feel the old dog of his heart rear up and tug at its leash. His breath tasted like ashes. He was my father's friend. I was 16 and didn't understand yet how life can kill you a little at a time. Still, I kissed him back. Safe. After we buried my mother, we drank beer and told stories in the room where she died. The hospital bed was gone, and the portable commode I'd helped her settle on, love seat tucked flush with the window, long sofa shoved against the wall, like always. The same sofa where she'd fall asleep watching baseball while she waited for me to come home from some high school dance. Once, when I wasn't back by midnight, she threw a raincoat over her flannel pajamas, drove around until she found me, mussed and unbuttoned behind the big boy, sharing a bag can of Colt 45 with a second-string quarterback. All the way home, and for an entire week, I was punished by silence. Last time I saw her, I wanted her to speak to me, tell me she wasn't really asleep, to lock the front door, turn off the last light, follow me upstairs, having made the house safe for the night. But she didn't know who I was. This was the last poem I wrote. In fact, this wasn't in the manuscript that I sent to Moon City. It was accepted, and then there was probably like 6 months before I had to hand in the final manuscript. And a lot of poems got pulled out, and more got pulled in. And this is one of the ones that got put in at the last poem to go in. And it was a poem that I had tried to write for years, and it refused to lineate in any exciting or interesting way, and I hate that. It was like, and the more I flailed it, the more it, refused to do anything interesting. So finally, I just let it out of its lines. It was like, oh, yes. So it, it reads like a poem. It's been in the Norton Anthology of Microfiction, and it kind of started my love affair with microfiction because I didn't have to break lines anymore. Breaking lines is so hard. Don't you agree? It is. So anyways, I don't have to break lines anymore. I just type and it, around. It's great. Anyways, I should point out too that the second section of my book is birth mother poems. I came of age in the pre-Roe era when girls who got into trouble, a euphemism, were sent away to have their babies, and they came back, and everybody pretended like nothing had happened. Several friends in my high school did this, and I thought about their lives, and I wanted to, kind of inhabit them. So this poem is one of those poems. It's called We Smoke. We smoke because the nuns say we shouldn't. He-Man Marlboros or Salem's, slender and meadow fresh over cups of thin coffee at the Bridge Diner. We fill an ashtray in an hour easy, while Ruby, the waitress, marries ketchups and tells us horror stories about how her first labor went on for 52 hours until her boy was yanked out of her butt first. And now she has this theory that kids who come out like that got their brains in their asses from day one. She says we're smart to give our babies away to some Barbie and Ken couple with a house and a yard with real grass and a swing set, and we nod like we agree with her, and we smoke some more. Nights we huddle up under the bathroom window in the Mercy Home for unwed mothers and blow smoke at the stained sky while we swap stories about our babies doing handstands on our bladders, playing volleyball with our hearts, how our sons will be presidents or astronauts, and our daughters will be beautiful and chaste. And because we know our babies are not ours at all, we talk about everything and nothing while we watch a moth bang up against the light and smoke some more. This is why I quit breaking lines. It's so much more fun to read. You can read straight through instead of that thing. Okay. The beginning of something is always the end of another. Take the day, for instance. How the ruff of sun's first light shoulders the night aside. And when I butt my morning cigarette, my absolute last cigarette, I begin to chew my cuticles. And why my next door neighbor drops by daily to cry about her ex who ran off with some little slut he meant in tango class. And when my 20-year-old cat misses the litter box, howls at headlights that strafe the ceiling. I know this will end in ashes at a cemetery where we stood over my mother's urn, hugless, useless hands dangling from our dumb arms, while on the hill above us, a guy wearing soiled khakis lounged in a golf cart, waiting for us to understand this was it, the end. We needed to leave already so we could finally begin to dig. Okay. Routine. The hour after my cat died, I swam laps because it was Monday and because I'd read that routine is an antidote to grief. My routine for nearly 9 years had been to swim at noon on Monday and Wednesday, sometimes Sunday, though I felt guilty on the days my cat meowed around the house, a rag of bones. Yet somehow I kept swimming, whispering, I'm sorry, because underwater the loudest sound is the absence of sound, not of my cat as he sighed into death, or my mother, who died silent the second my dad turned to talk to the hospice nurse, who dressed my mom in a green sweatsuit and sent her off to be cremated, same as my cat. My mother came back in a silver urn, my cat in a metal box bordered by roses, his name typed and taped to the bottom. Just read a couple more. Pilgrims. I was challenged, I think, in a workshop that I took online from Kim Adonesia. We had to write a poem and not use I in it at all. Just look out the window and write about it. And it was like, oh my God, I can't do that. So it was a good challenge. Pilgrims. 2 men from the halfway house are hanging out on the corner, shin deep in ragged snow, tagged by a graffiti of dog pee and car dirt. Their words turn to steam, but they don't talk much, don't do much of anything, but stand on the corner in their thin shoes, hands jammed into jacket pockets as afternoon trudges on toward evening. The blue hour when bars blaze awake in a hum of neon. Somewhere in the wrecked cities this pair of pilgrims has left behind. A communion of drinkers is gathering on stools, thirsty for whiskey's swift benediction, sung back by a silver choir of bottles. But look how the tall man bends his face to the cupped hands of the short man offering a match. See him tip his head back to exhale. Let the dime-sized flakes bless his face. What I've lost, a taste for Southern comfort, umbrellas, 2 in a week when I was down to $8 in the bank, halfway to payday, and rain in the forecast. Tail end of a hurricane that blew through Cuba, kissed the coast of Florida, and ricocheted into Philly, where its gray buttocks of sky squatted over us for days. I tied a garbage bag, turban style, swanned past the row of 4-star restaurants on Walnut Street, imagining I was a 40s movie queen shooting a scene on a wet set. Next payday, I dropped $70 on a steak and a bottle of rosé, something French and unpronounceable, curly on the tongue. The sun was out. I forgot about rain and sweet whiskey thick in my throat. The last poem in the book is actually where the title comes from. So it's kind of like, eating Cracker Jack, your promise, that little terrible thing down at the very bottom, and you keep eating it. Oh, I got to get the prize. So you have to keep eating the book in order to get to the prize at the end and go, oh, that's where the title comes from. So anyway, yeah.
It's wonderful when you finally understand where that title comes from.
I believe Cathy is saying to buy the book. Please. Anyways, this poem has been around a few times, the internet, so, like maybe you read it on the internet, but it's also on the moon. It was part of a bunch of stuff that got put on a thing and sent up, and I don't know how it works, but it landed on the moon last year, which was kind of cool, so it's going to stay up there forever. And I, joked at the time to a reporter who called me and asked me about, well, how does it feel to have a poem on the moon? I said, well, maybe, more people on the moon will read poetry than they do here. You can only hope. Probably the same number. Like present breed, is that what you said? Excluded, so thank you very much. Anyways, the title of this poem is Wondrous. I haven't read it in a while. I kind of quit reading it when it started going around, so bear with me while I wonders. I'm driving home from school when the radio talk turns to E.B. White, his birthday, and I exit the here and now of the freeway at rush hour, travel back into the past where my mother is reading to my sister the part about Charlotte laying her eggs and dying. And though this is the 5th time Charlotte has died, my mother is crying again, and we're laughing at her because we know nothing of loss and its sad math. How every subtraction is exponential, how each grief multiplies the one preceding it, how the author tried 17 times to read the words she died alone without crying, 17 takes and a short walk during which he called himself ridiculous. A grown man crying for a spider he'd spun out of the silk thread of invention. Wondrous how those words would come back and make him cry, and yes, wondrous to hear my mother's voice 10 years after the day she died. The catch, the rasp, the gathering up before she could say to us, I'm okay. Thank you.
I'm going to try sitting down so I'm more in line with this thing. I've read that poem on the radio. I've read it to people.
You put it on the radio? Did I get your royalties for it?
I didn't know how, I learned something about reading that poem just then. I love that poem. Love it. One more. We got to do this one. Now, see, I told you this was going to be great. This was going to be great, and we're not done yet. I think we still have one more, don't we? Cathy. Cathy Smith Bowers served as the North Carolina Poet Laureate from 2010 until 2012.
So do you see what he's doing? He thinks he's talking like me. Sean, I don't talk like that.
I'm sorry.
No, you're not.
No, I truly am. She was educated at the University of South Carolina, Lancaster, and Winthrop University, the University of Oxford, and the Hayden Institute. Press 53 published Like Shining from Shook Foil and her selected poems drawing from her 4 previously published volumes, and then brought together all 4 in, maybe I'm saying this all wrong, but in the collected poems, but they're all back there. And it's up to you to go find them. She served many years as poet in residence at Queen's University of Charlotte, and now teaches in their low residency MFA program. And that's all there is to say about Cathy Smith Bowers for the moment.
It's such trouble.
Wow.
You know, I'm not just making this up, but this is the best reading I've ever been to, and I haven't even read yet. I'm serious. I mean, don't you agree?
You say that to all the girls.
So, Sean, I have to say, I forgive you for all of your wrongdoing, you know, because that you got me in touch with these 2 marvelous poets and human beings, and it helps me. And also, you guys who read today, it's like an experience that lets us know how connected we are. I guess the word that comes to mind, because I like to sound academic, is archetypal, you know. So I'm so happy to be here, and as I said, I forgive you, Sean. So I've never had the experience of going through my life's work and reading all of my mother poems. And I had so many epiphanies. It was an important experience in my life. And one of the things, and especially, Tina, listening to you, so much of your work is about language also. And so that's, I never thought before that so many of the poems that allude or are about my mother have to do with language. That was one of my epiphanies. I didn't know that was such a big part of my story, being my mother's daughter. So this poem goes all the way back to the beginning, and I realized that this whole thing about language started with my mother's choosing my name. And she was very proud of the thought she put into naming the 6 of us. She didn't want to name us anything that could be turned into a joke or a cutesy nickname. So she put a lot of thought into it, and she would often go through a litany of explaining to us how she chose our names. But I named you after a famous movie star. I named you after a famous athlete. I named you after St. Paul in the Bible. And she'd get to me and say, and I named you after a little girl who died in an abandoned well. I was a little confused. Something didn't seem right. So she did indeed name me after a little girl whose name was Cathy Fiscus, who fell into an abandoned well out in California And it was the first time that people had started getting televisions in their homes. And so it was also the first event that was nationally experienced. The story of this little girl that my mother named me for. So it's a huge part of my mythology. And as a matter of fact, one of my publishers fired me, which is how this book came into being, because another publisher felt sorry for me and did this one. But when we were going back and forth over this thing that we disagreed on, he said, one of his emails said, "Talking to you is like talking to somebody down at the bottom of a well." I said, "Well, what a coincidence." So, okay. This poem is called Namesake. Can y'all hear me okay? This poem is called Namesake for Cathy Fiscus III, who died in an abandoned well the summer of 1949. From the face of the earth is how they put it when someone disappears. So all day your father paces among bulldozers and cranes as your mother sits in the car muttering to the visor. I hang in my own mother's womb, little turtle, zeppelin of skin and marrow. The chipped ice she craves grinds in her teeth like pneumatic saws. And because television that summer will be the closest thing to miracle, she gives in to the sloppy recliner, to the window fans rattle and clack, to watch as hour by hour hope fails in black and white. Down there you must have heard something queer, a scraping at earth, some ancient burrowing. And what word can name the descent of midgets armed with buckets and spades? You lived 2 days, your voice tapping at the surface, that one song rising now and then into the suspended mic. Then air, light, the blood hammering at the soft closure of my skull. They lifted me out, all slag and sediment, sludge of another life, and gave me your name. Yeah, another part, a huge part of my mythology with my mother is that to this day, that one of the worst thing about COVID, and I know that this is sort of counterintuitive, but the worst part of COVID for me was that I never got it because I love being sick. And I never got it. Honey, I would go in stores without my mask on. And this poem sort of explains why I love being sick. It's my mama's fault. Falling in love with sickness. After the next one was born, and mother abandoned my bed to take up with the pink wrinkled thing, its eyes stuck shut with mucus, wispy hair clotted to its head, the small cave of its mouth sucking out her life. I rolled over into the warm grave her body left and fell in love. Flu and scarlet fever, diphtheria and mumps. Then willing myself yellow, I leaned back into the down of quilts and pillows as jaundice crept over my body. This is true, guys. I'm not making this up. I had everything. If it came around, I got it. My limbs racked and shuddered with chills, glowed with fever's bright hallucinations, erupted in sores and ulcers, those rare jewels of dog days glistening against my skin. I licked my tongue into the sugar bowl, lapping up the forbidden grains, the sweet promise of diabetes, and imagined my mother easing the daily needle into my skin. I dreamed of steamy jungles, malaria riding on the wing and buzz of insects, waded in filthy ponds hunting that old frog typhus, the charmed prince of stagnation longing for my kiss, coughed, wheezed, and vomited until mother came back to my bed, fluffing pillows, bearing bowls of grapes and oranges, that warm jar of mentholatum she rubbed into my chest, quieting the small animal that rattled there. One by one, she drove them all away, each walking out of my life like a friend she did not approve of. When she went back to her ironing, to the pots boiling on the stove, the dirty floors, to the whimpers and cries of that other one who had mastered some chronic ailment. I dragged myself from bed and slowly dressed, pausing to breathe the last sweet smells of the sick room, then turning, stepped quietly through help's lonely door. This poem is called Men. Men, M-E-N. Not two syllables, okay? The summer I was 10, my mother fell in love with Elvis. I watched her swoon into the TV set, moaning, "Love me tender" to the screen, my father's supper burning on the stove. One morning she combed the cotton from her hair, packed a canvas bag, and took the train to Memphis. When she came back, I asked where Elvis was, and she cried for days. Men, I remember her saying years later, me 16 and broken-hearted by a boy across the tracks whose name I never knew. Morning until dusk, I walked the brooding rails through June and through July and into August until summer loaded up and left, the way a yard sale closes down at dark, the racks of faded dresses hauled back in. We both survived. That boy moved away to Kansas, and the county covered up the tracks with pitch and tar. Father took mother back and never mentioned Elvis. And mother never burned his food again, nor sang. My mother was about, I guess she was maybe 5'2", and always overweight. And she gave birth to 6 children from the heights of 5'9" through 6'4", bean poles. And so one of the parts of my mythology was her weight. She was always trying to lose weight, and I wrote this poem, I remember, as a love poem to her body. And she still didn't like it. So this poem is called Motherland. I pitied the other children, their skinny mothers. Nothing to burrow when the church pew began to harden like sugar brittle or God. Their elbows sharp as crags we climbed to the bluff where Jimmy Adams took our dare and jumped and never came up again. I pitied them, their mothers, all point and longitude. Tentative as sandbars, the chain gang dozed to stay the riverbanks. My mama was a continent, terra softa, where she sprawled in her big chair, or across the bed when thunder ripped the shingles and rain swelled the sills like ripe earth. And there in the valleys of blankets and pillows, each of us staked claim to whatever fleshy region we had chosen to settle while the storm spent itself. My sisters nestling the soft slopes of her breasts, me floating meridians of hip and thigh. My mama was promised land, and we small redoubts not even our father could penetrate. Odd denizen from that country of men we could see mounting the horizon, their bright flags flying, their cannons aimed. Yeah, Tina, this is some of your poems about language and talk. Just really, I felt that connection there. This poem is called A Southern Rhetoric. Southern Rhetoric. And it started with just a sentence that came out of my mother's mouth that sort of sent my head spinning. And a Southern Rhetoric. So it starts with that sentence. It's a sight in this world, the things in this world there are to see, my mother says, as she hurries between the stove and Sunday table. She is just back from vacation, happy, talking mountains, talking rivers, big cedars, and tidal bores. When I tease her for redundancy, her face glows like a sturgeon moon, risen above fat, buttery atolls of biscuits, steaming promontory of roast. She shakes her finger in my face and scolds me good. Girl, don't you forget who it was learned you to talk. Amazing she would want to lay claim to these syllables, piling up like railroad salvage when I speak, to these words slow as hooves dredging from the wet of just plowed fields. I watch her turn embarrassed to the sink, to the pots and pans she will scrub to a gleam so bright we can see ourselves, as if the two of us stared back from the lost rhetoric of memory, from the little house, the crib where she bent each day, naming for me the world, where words always fail, warranting now and then those few extra syllables, some things spoken twice. See. There's another one that has to do with the language. Okay. I have to walk out here. When we're growing up, we get all of these euphemisms because our parents don't think that we're ready to know the real word, right? Okay, so, all right, this part of your anatomy, what were you taught to call it? Mostly belly button. Any other? Oh no, honey, that was too weak. I think most people's belly button. So you must have had really avant-garde parents. Oh no! If you got navel. Well, did anybody else have any other? Oh, just stomach. Okay. So they totally disregarded that little place. Okay. Smart. Well, I was in first grade before I learned that that was not called a boll weevil. Boll weevil. B-O-L-L, weevil. Okay, so this story attempts to recreate that moment of elucidation. So it's called Language, a Sentimental Education. How it makes and breaks you, that tenuous stringing together of letters and sounds, mean and amen, casual and casualty, good and God and dog. How it can turn on you, the way my first grade teacher's eyes bulge in disbelief the day I ran crying to her, tattling on the snot-nosed boy who had poked me in my boll weevil with his pencil. I can feel the mortification of that moment still, the class tumbling into hysterics, collapsing among the jacks and pickup sticks as I lifted my shirt for her to see, the whirls of my primordial wound reddening where his eraser had gone. It's time, my mother said as I recounted later the sequence of events. Time, she said, and began the inevitable cleansing, slow evacuation of the beautiful rhetoric of metaphor she had 6 years blessed me with. That day she gave me navel. The next, vagina and urinate. Words that could take me anywhere. Help me, she assured, disappear into any crowd. Good dog. Okay. And then this will be my last one. And when my mother died from the aftermath of a stroke, and she had the stroke, and then her kidneys failed, and the doctor told me that after 2 weeks, if her kidneys had not regained their the work that the kidneys do, it was not going to happen. And I said, well, what will happen? He said, she'll have to have both of her legs amputated. And I said, nope, not going to happen. So that's what this poem alludes to. So it's the title of the poem is Unmentionables. How many of you know what unmentionables are? Okay, unmentionables. Odd how my mother's incessant utterings seemed only an attempt to unsay the world. Her eyes, her ears, her nose, her ever-flitting hands bore witness to. Unthinkable, unspeakable, unheard of, she would say, annihilating the bits and pieces of unpalatable news that daily came her way. That unfortunate down the street, she dubbed the woman who traded herself for cash to feed her hungry brood, and the ultimate obscuring, total obliteration of the offending word, unmentionables, meaning the clean cotton panties my sisters and I wore beneath the piqué and organdy of our dresses and skirts. Sundays at dinner, it was always drumstick, dark meat, trotter, she would ask someone to pass. The word leg, far too erotic for her lexicon. Had she not gone when she did, this is what they would have done to her: amputate her lower extremities, or, as the doctor later so clearly put it, cut off both her legs. How considerate the gods to have spared her the indelicacy of those words, mortification of a different kind. Death has no manners, Mama. Unspeakable, unthinkable, unutterable. That unfortunate down the street, waiting in the soft, ephemeral lure of her unmentionables. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
And so that's not enough applause. One more time. Weren't they great? So I'll make you girls a deal. I'll go get you all glasses of wine if you'll go back there and sign books. Would you do it?
You mean it?
Yeah. I'm serious. So you all know where they're going to be. And the only other thing you need to know is where you're going to be. So thank you so much for this whole wonderful gathering and the part of it that you all have taken part in. We're so grateful to have you here. I hope you enjoy. There's a great barbecue dinner out there waiting for you. And just think you get all this and barbecue. When does that happen? Sarah.
Just want to remind you all that we are going to have our raffles and silent auction at about 6:15. So if there's something you have your eye on, put more tickets in or keep bidding. Go out this side and out to the patio. That's where we're having our barbecue. And there's some live music out there. So thank you all for coming.